it takes a little bit of time and go live. I have all these things, podcast channels popping up, and so as this
How do I
turns
share your
over,
live feed?
my live feed is only going to be on my YouTube channel. It's going to be on my Facebook channel. It's going to be on Instagram. It's going to be on Twitter. It's going to be on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
It's going to be recorded and pushed live for my iHeart iTunes podcast channel. And we are popping up here on YouTube, which is the YouTube channel is Dr. Paul Dyer Grandmaster. And then on my Facebook channel, it should be popping up here pretty quick. Let's see. There it is, and it's there. I'd like to thank everyone who's coming on, and this is Bridges Live. I'm Dr. Paul, and I'd like to get right into my show to talk about what we're doing. Bridges Live is a show about information, understanding, and action, and that's all you need to know. And I got these two sisters on, and I want them to introduce themselves before we get into the show. And what we're going to be talking about is post-traumatic prison syndrome. There's a bill that they're writing on that we need to focus on and talk about. Doctor, please, you go first.
Hello, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure to converse with you. Anyway, it's always enlightening and educational. My name is Dr. Coral Ann Griffith Hunt, and I am a human industrial and trauma psychologist. I am senior advisor to members of the Senate, Congress, and the Assembly. And I am a UN woman, that's a United States woman. And I am also founder of Creative for Greatness Leadership Group. And I am a proud member to sit on Silent Cry with Shawana Vaughn, who's up next.
And Shawana, please introduce yourself.
After that, what do you say? Hi, my
Hey,
name is Shawana Vaughn. I am the director of Silent Cry, the mother of two beautiful children, an activist. I have the pleasure to have such a wonderful sister uh, like Dr. Coral Ann, and the pain to write legislation called post-traumatic prison disorder, Shawana W76337.
so before we get into the why you're working on this legislation, so let's Dr. Corland, tell us the science behind PTSD, that you're the post-traumatic prison disorder, please.
Well, a lot of people may have heard of the ACEs, and so many people are talking about trauma today, and they don't really define what it is, what it entails, and to also know that trauma looks differently for everyone that experiences it. And so when we're talking about post-traumatic stress, where a lot of people tend to think, that it's just something that only individuals in the military have experienced, right? They don't think that it and that's exactly, for those of us who are clinicians, those of us who've experienced trauma, we can say, no, I didn't have to go to Afghanistan to get flashbacks of my past. I didn't have to be in war to experience things that's going on with my brain, right?
Dr. Corland, before you continue,
Mhm.
if people does not know who's listened to Bridges Live with me, Dr. Paul, I'll
Mhm.
tell you three things. I've been in combat,
Right.
I've been molested as a young boy,
Mhm.
and I've been locked up.
Mhm.
There has nothing to do with only a specific of PTSD that I have ever correlated my assessment with,
Mhm.
that I have healing from. I
Right.
would never say overcome,
Right.
but healing from is because I have expressed my pain.
Mhm.
I have chosen my recovery path.
Mhm.
I have understood what it has done to me and what I can do from it. And that's all I want to say. But go ahead, continue, please.
Absolutely, and that's absolutely the right synopsis of this thing, right? It's knowing, and it's an individual thing, as I said, knowing how it has affected you. For some people, they can't even be in a room with some person that smoke a certain type of cigarette because they're triggered. For some, it could be a tone of someone's voice that triggers them because of what they have been through. And so when I mentioned the ACEs in the very beginning, that's the adverse childhood experiences. And something else that we don't talk about is the adverse community experiences, right? And the adverse community environments, because you can really be under a severe amount of stress that leads to trauma from being in an environment that's toxic, an environment that is that's violence driven, right? So when we start to look at how it affects the brain and how it's not, something that you just get over right after the event has happened, I like to, in layman's terms, teach individuals that, if you have a computer and you have too many tabs open, your computer will move slowly. It won't execute what you need it to execute. That's exactly what happens to the brain when it experiences trauma. And trauma can be incarceration. Trauma can be abuse. Trauma can be violence. It can be a divorce for some. For others, it can be the loss of a job, having your house get foreclosed on, and you don't know where you're going to live. Trauma, rape, so there's so many different definitions to what trauma can be to certain individuals. In this bill, when we look at this bill, we're talking about post-traumatic prison disorder. So what we do is we look at the trauma that someone experiences, pre-incarceration. So were they a part of any form of substance abuse? Were they, part of a violent environment? Were they abused as a child? Were they raised in an environment that was abusive? So when you start to look at that and you can start to see how coming from that environment, coming from that stressful environment, because when you're in a stressful environment, your systems of your body takes on that stress and starts to work slower, and your brain just gets too many things happening. But so it can lead individuals that were raised in a certain environment or experience some form of trauma, they get incarcerated because we punish behavior, right? In our society, we punish behavior. We punish the fruit, but never the root. We don't deal with the root. And so what happens is they go into prison, they're incarcerated, and they get re-traumatized in prison.
So here's the thing, and you know this, and Shawan, I'm going to go right to you and ask you about, before you get into why you started this bill, the whole thing about people in prisons, and this has everything to do with when someone says about that, when they say these words, they deserve to be there.
Mm.
What is your pushback on that, Shawan?
Absolutely, unequivocally not. Everybody thinks they're safer because 2.3 million minorities are locked up. You're not safer. Do I think that a world needs some type of reconstruction of behavior and learning? Absolutely.
Please don't talk about Reconstruction, because as a post-traumatic slave disorder, we got totally screwed during Reconstruction. Oh, yeah. So you say Reconstruction, and I already got, the jitters. So I totally get it. When you say Reconstruction, there's an effect on that in itself. But go ahead, sister.
But no, prison is not the answer. I don't think prison was the best thing that could have happened to me. I think that I learned more behaviors that needed more therapy in prison than I learned when I was outside on the street.
But you know, we have to answer to people who've never been to prison, who don't know anyone who's been incarcerated, who doesn't know anyone who's done anything ever wrong. And you know what it sounds like? We're talking to mostly the white people. And that's the sad issue. We're talking mostly. I'm not saying we're talking to all. And you know, when a show comes to this, when it goes into public airways, when it goes into public ears, where you have these people going, shit, I don't know nobody who went to prison. I'm not talking to you, but I am talking to you. So what about those people who says, I know no one who's been to prison. I know people who only get locked up because of things they done wrong. And why do we owe them anything?
You don't owe them anything. You owe yourself everything. You owe yourself to have the ability to have a better world that is mentally taken care of. And everybody screams about their taxes and what that looks like. Well, you owe yourself to know where your tax money goes. And you owe yourself to put your taxes to good use. So it's not that you owe incarcerated people or formerly incarcerated people anything. But do you owe yourself to know, to be aware of anything? The onus is on the individual. So when people come out of incarceration and they are not mentally well, they might be your neighbor. And so you would want to assist in getting mental health and mass incarceration together, because they might be the person who's serving you your food in the drive-through or cleaning your office or whatever it may be. Going to school, you know, their children go to school with your children. And so if we look at this differently, if we don't look at this as my four and no more, or it's not me, it's all of us inclusive, because mental health doesn't have a color or a boundary.
Right.
It just has actions.
You know what's sad to me, and it does make me sad, and I had to develop my healing process of speaking my truth or telling my story, right? And I don't hide the fact that I've been incarcerated. I don't hide the fact that I've been in combat. I don't hide the fact that I've been molested. But you know what's funny? People don't ever ask me, how are you? And those things, whether they could ever understand how I truly am, what I'm really feeling, because I've done so many things in the community, I've done whatever, and they pat me on the back, but they don't understand my struggle. And Dr. Corlane, what is that something that we should just voice on that would help them? Because it doesn't help us.
Right. You know, and it's interesting that you say that, because I'm around the country, right? And I'm talking about trauma, I'm teaching, I'm training, and people are also surprised when I say that I was molested. Because it's like, well, wait a minute. How could you be molested? I thought that you know, you have to be jacked up, you know. Wow. And then it becomes, I become the champion. Oh, you're brave, you're so strong. And so that it's either, there's no in between in this process. People either see you as the victim or you're the champion.
Right.
And that we need to change the narrative. We need to change the narrative, because what we do then is enable people to keep their secrets. We enable people not to look for their healing, because we don't talk about it. And when we do talk about it, we're looked upon as though we don't even battle with anything anymore, that nothing comes to mind. And for some of us, it's a daily.
Yeah.
It is something that we have to regulate our emotions daily.
Yeah.
And when we get triggered, when something could be triggering, we have to regulate. We have to go, okay, you know, this is not the person that harmed me. That's what we have to stay constant. Well, that is not the person that harmed me. And they don't even see behind the scenes with those of us that carry the titles, what we go through. And so you're right. It's automatically, you know, champion. We're looked upon as champions, but that's why I move away from that. And I'm a humanitarian. So my life's work is to make sure that other human beings are okay.
Right.
And sometimes in order to do that, I have to share my story because I need them to know that they're not the only one. And also I need them to know that it didn't start with them. I need them to understand that it's historical for some of the things that we go through as African Americans in America. It's generational because we hide things within our families.
And our culture. And our culture. Not
our
family.
culture. But in our culture, yes, you're right. And we need to expose that. Yeah. I'm so tired. I said the other day on another panel that I was on, I said, you know, I'm so tired of us keeping up with the lie. Mm. We know how to cover the lie, but we don't know how to speak truth. And it's time that we speak truth. There's no more sending our daughters to the Caribbean or down south because some uncle or someone that we know impregnated them. We're not doing that anymore. We're moving away from that. And so, and why? Because it's things like that that causes behaviors that we see in our daughters and our sons, because they are dealing with trauma. They are doing things that may not be, I'm not saying that I agree, but you don't have to agree with the behavior to understand where it came from. Mm-hmm. And so when we need to open up a safe space within our culture to tell the truth. All right. And as we were saying before, it's not about waiting for something to happen and for the movement to begin. How about not waiting until something happens? How about just start talking about what has happened so that we can all be healed? Our communities will be better.
You know what, Shawana? You know, I started Bridges Live 4 years ago, been doing different these things, and there's not one story that has gone and will come that I don't have a connection to. My question is this. I don't speak to just individuals. I speak to the world globally and to people to understand that we have a story, but we have a solution. You came up with a solution in this bill, and I tell you, sister, you got to tell your story, and let's get to your solution.
So my story begins April 15th, 1978 in Corona State Prison for Women. I was born to a mother who was incarcerated for being addicted to drugs. And instead of giving her rehab, they think that if your zip code and your skin color is other than white, rehab is prison. Mm-hmm. And so I was born to a mother shackled and chained, giving birth to the dream and the hope of a slave. Mm. If we think slavery was 1619, slavery is 2020, slavery was 1978, because who gives birth in chains? I've been in the foster care system and back to prison. And I know that, trauma is a real thing. Like she said, we live in a military, uh, Black people live in the military, don't ask, don't tell policy. And it's unacceptable. Um, and we hide trauma. We hide, like she said, molestation. And it's not okay, because it comes out in our behaviors. I am living and sitting here and breathing somebody who's been molested. And it's funny because we talk about the uncles and the cousins at the dinner tables, and yet they're allowed to be at the family reunions. And I said, how do we allow such behavior when our parents say they're going to protect us? Well, then a rapist can't exist in a family when we don't want to tell the truth. And then when the children grow up to be like me and commit crime and rob and steal and hurt, and you're confused about sexuality, so you sleep with men, you sleep with women, and you're really not quite sure. These are all the things. And then when the rubber finally hits the road, some of us end up dead. Some of us get a chance to go to prison. And some of us just go down rabbit holes and never come back. And so, I had one foot on the grave and one on the banana peel. The banana peel slid me to Valley State Prison for Women for 5 years. So I've lived to tell my story, and I'm grateful for that. But I suffer the remnants and residuals of trauma and prison. And it's okay to say I'm not okay, but I'm working on myself. And I don't believe that I could come out of a rabbit hole without therapy. I don't think we're going to survive until our communities say it is okay to be well. It is okay to heal. It is okay to tell all the dirty secrets that we have. I love Kelly Rowland because she says, let's air this dirty laundry. I really think our communities at large, in totality, we have to have a dirty laundry party so we can all wash the clothes and heal together. We've got to heal these wounds. Like I said, when I got to prison, I met a lady. Her name was Bernice Cubie, and she told me who my mother was. And I think for me, that began my journey to healing. Somebody gave me the ability to let go of hate and resentment and hurt of why somebody could not raise me, why drugs was so horrible. And she explained to me that she too was a drug addict and one of my mother's friends, and that in 1978, she named me while I was in my mother's womb. And she told me if I was my mother's daughter, then she knew she would see me. And she was doing life in prison when I met her. And not until I got home did I understand that we have generational trauma, because this lady said, if you are your mother's daughter, I knew I would get to see you. That's scary. And I've decided that I don't want to be my mother's daughter in that manner.
I
To be what we've been through. And I thank God for a sister like Dr. Carol Ann, who is able to understand our hurts and pains and carry us as well. And this legislation came out of my prison diary with all of my pain. I don't want children that go to prison but I know that children of incarcerated parents become incarcerated. Not anymore. I cut the umbilical cord of that legacy.
Mm.
And I know that I want to be whole. I know that others want to be whole. And the remnants from prison are different for everybody. And so is mental health, because it's not a one size fit all box. My issues might not be somebody else's issues, but whatever the issue is, we all deserve to be whole. And I think that holistic, comprehensive therapy is what is needed. We push big brand drugs in prison, and I think that that's unacceptable, because all we produce is people who come out addicted to pills and then they get hooked on drugs, and they're never going to get off of a system.
Shawana, and you know, when we tell our story, trust me, when we tell our story, this is not short of us reliving the story. We don't, it is not because we tell our story because it goes away. When we tell our story, it becomes so vivid that it's always vivid. You know what I mean? I'm what, here's the thing that I'm so saddened about in all issues is that until people feel what they don't understand, they will never care. Until people feel what they don't understand, they will never care. Tell us about your prison life. You don't have to give much, just give some so
Mhm.
people can understand what it is. You know, I told my wife, and she made a funny thing, and I'm not gonna get into the details, but there's a sprayer on in the shower. You know, the sprayer that removes, and it got removed, and I said it felt like I was getting locked up again,
Mm.
and and she felt sad about that, and I was like, well, it's not your fault. It's just because that's how they had to clean you before you go into the next stage. And it didn't trigger any romanticness whatsoever.
Yeah.
It triggered a sadness for me that I remembered that stage of that process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And people don't get that.
Well, absolutely. Because for me, prison is such a confined space. And getting in an elevator, it's a simple process. Everybody does it every day. For me, it takes more than the average person, even if I don't look like it, because when the doors close, I hold my breath because I'm waiting. I want it to just open because I'm used to a prison cell that doesn't open. Somebody has to pop the door. It's simple as, like you said, I have insomnia because everybody knows that 4:30 in the morning and 4:30 in the evening is count time. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, most every morning since prison. It is just the smell of noodles is almost detesting.
Prison pizza.
For, absolutely. You know, my biggest trauma right now, currently, is public housing. Like right now, today, I have bars on the inside and the outside of my windows, and I'm living in an extension of prison currently as I sit and speak with you right now. And it is a trauma that I am currently trying to get out of because I'm trying to explain to people that the mental health effects of bars on the inside and the outside for somebody who is formerly incarcerated is traumatic.
Mhm.
Where the average person, it might bother them, but it might not send them into depression. It might not reel them into night terrors. But that is exactly currently what is happening to me. And when I go outside, I have to function as if I'm okay.
Mhm.
And I'm not okay. I feel like every day when I leave my home, I get to go out to the yard because I came out of a prison cell. This is my home. And you know, they call it a project because it's a mental health disaster and it creates trauma and it creates a cycle of incarceration because, I'm not a New Yorker, but I do clearly now understand the rate of public housing people in incarceration. This is a subliminal setup
Yeah.
for prison. And
Always
it's the
has.
reverse for me. See, and I didn't know. I got here because of Hurricane Sandy and I'm repulsed that New York City would allow its citizens to live second rate, inhuman, and in mental torture.
Shawanda, take a break, please. Dr. Caroline, let's talk about why this is difficult for the legislature to get through. You've been in public
Mhm.
space for a long time now, and let's talk about what we need to get this through.
Well, there are different facets. And let me just say, Shumana, I think before I even answer that, Shumana, you are so brave.
Yes, yes,
You are so brave to be able to share your stories with us. And I've watched you share your story with such resiliency, such strength, and I honor you. I honor you, and I just wanted to publicly say that and allow yourself this time to just breathe and be well. Be well. Um, you said something, Dr. Paul, that's so interesting. It's until it really happens to you, right? Why understand it? And in policy, you know, of course, policy for policy for people that deal with policy, they deal with money. They see money, right? We see change. It's going to change our community. They see money. They see how much it's going to cost. They and policies take years sometimes to even for them to even sign bills into law. Let's be realistic. And then for something such as post-traumatic stress disorder, we're looking at the DMS-5, right? We're looking at the book that all clinicians turn to when they're seeking to diagnose someone for whatever disorder they may have. And that in itself takes years to be able to identify something like that and place it inside of a book. So we're looking at a long space of time for both policy and for it to be acknowledged as something that individuals actually um, experience. And also on the other end of this onion that we have to peel are individuals that believe in this one size fits all, believe in the get over it. Just as you said at the beginning of this conversation, what about those people that say, well, they deserve it? Do you know that in 2016, we had 8.1 million individuals walking around with co-occurring mental illness and or substance abuse, and only 48.1% received some form of treatment?
yes.
What happened to the others?
What?
And I asked that question, and I also asked the question of, for the 48.1% that did receive some form of treatment, did it work?
Did they stay?
Did they stay? Did they trust you enough, clinicians?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's another issue that's in our community that we do not speak about. Can I trust my doctor?
And
Can I?
and does my doctor recognize me for who I am?
I am, and for what I truly need, or will I be treated according to what textbook says? And so when we start to look at why these things have not been taken care of, policy, they're looking they're looking at the money, they're looking at the expense. Is it economically sound for our state to do this? But I promise you that it's more feasible to take care of your people, your citizens, before something happens than it will be after it has occurred. It's more expensive after it has occurred, because you can have some person walking around with dual diagnosis, dual issues, and they want so badly to find a place of wholeness. I have not met someone to this day that has said to me, Dr. Hunt, I want to stay in this trauma. What I've heard them say is, I don't know how to get out of this. I don't know what to do with the voices in my head. I don't know what to do with thinking that I can't even have some person in the back of me, that I'd rather have my back against a wall. I don't know what to do with what I'm feeling. Where do I place my anger? What are we doing? What is the answer? The answers to what our community members are saying. It cannot be, well, I don't have enough money to take care of you, but I could lock you up. Because the truth of the matter is, behavior is secondary.
Yes.
Behavior is secondary, and we keep on punishing behavior. And I say you can take a good person, a really good individual, whatever good means to different people, a person who's never committed a crime, a person who may go
you know you're stepping, Dr. Carlan, you know you're stepping in it, and I'm gonna call you out, because what we're gonna say is that this excuse my purpose, this shit's done on purpose.
But
Okay.
so let me
if it's not, hold on, if it's not done on purpose, then how did you create all this?
Well, I'll tell you what, you take a good person, you take a good man, a man who you would go to work, bring home all his money to his wife or his significant other to feed his children, and then he loses his job, and he puts in applications everywhere, and everyone tells him that, you know what, sorry, you're overqualified or underqualified, or they find a reason not to hire this man. And then someday that man, watching his children who are hungry in his house or in his apartment, walks down to the 7-Eleven and steals a loaf of bread. And so you found a good man in a bad situation that would do a bad thing, and we lock him up. We lock up that behavior, but we still did not feed his family. We still did not find a solution for him or his family. And then we say, well, you know what? He caused it. No, I say shame on us for not helping that man. And we have to come to terms with the fact that we have been conditioned to punish pain with pain. And so for those individuals that say, well, you know, he could have gone here, he could have gone there, not until you're hungry. There's a day coming that you just might be hungry and you don't know what you may do. 2012 Superstorm Sandy happened here in New York, and I lost my house. I lost every single thing that I owned except for my children and my beautiful husband and my family, but our house was wiped out. That's the first day of my life I was declared homeless, a doctor homeless. So anything can happen to anyone at any given time, and we cannot point fingers. Thankfully, I had savings, was able to get another house. But what about the next person? And that's what we don't think about. I don't have to necessarily walk in your shoes, but dang it, I got to know that you either have shoes or you deserve them.
You know, the saddest issue, and you know, and we can, I have traveled a bit,
Mm-hmm.
and in certain communities, certain white communities
Mm-hmm.
will say these words: "Pull yourself up by your bootstraps."
Mm-hmm.
And I have said, "What if you don't have boots?"
What if I ain't got no boots?
That's right.
And they say, "That is not my problem."
That's not my.
And that's when I have no words to say,
Mm-hmm.
because I have lost the humanity in the speech.
Mm-hmm.
They have no humanity if you're able to verbalize, "That is not my problem."
That's right. Because it's humanity's problem.
It's a
It's not a
human problem.
problem. That's right. That's right. You know, Desmond Tutu said, "My humanity is bound up in your humanity, for we can only be human together."
You're a radical.
Come on. I'm your sister. You know this.
Absolutely.
You know, they're about ready to knock on your damn New York door and lock you the hell up right now. Don't answer your door in the next 20 minutes. I'm telling you right now.
No, that's right.
Because,
Just make sure y'all put some money on my car.
hey, I got your commissary, sister. I got
Got it.
But it's just the truth, man. If I cannot see a fellow human in pain, in need, and act as though it is not, how is it that we let the animals cater to each other better than we cater to each other?
Come on now.
That's that. Oh gosh, we have to do better. We have to. It's not should we do better. It's we have to do better than this. There's no divide. There should be no divide. A human being has the same right to exist in their space and to be valued as I do,
Shawana.
whether they were incarcerated or not.
Absolutely.
Shawana,
Yes, sir.
we can't end here because it has begun for thousands of years. We can't say it's over because there's still so much more to come. I'm trying not to cry, and not that I don't want to cry or anything like that. That's not my issue. That's not my issue. After this, I'm going to be talking to the global diplomatic chairman of public affairs, and we've been talking about human culture, pain, humanity. How can we help you, Shawana, with this bill?
I need grassroots help. I need people to write Senator Brian Benjamin's office here in New York. Michigan, also, Assemblyman Joel Jones has my legislation there. I'm getting ready to put up a petition in the morning, and I'll send you the link for organizations and individuals to sign on to say, "We the people." Because here's the reality. We put people in places, but we don't hold them accountable. Well, we the people decide legislation. We the people put people in office. And at this juncture, I gotta tell you, if the people that we put in offices do not do the things that we the people tell them to do, we the people need to retract our votes and take them back and find people who will be accountable. I need grassroots help. I need people that want to volunteer. an intern, and just, you know, people to get the word out.
So how do they contact you? Get your number out there, and we'll put that out there and things like that.
Yes. My email is Shawanna, SHAWANNA at silentcryinc.org. And my website is silentcryinc.org. And my phone number is 718-200-2720. People laugh when I give out my number. And I said, well, you know what? Real people gotta answer the phone and do real things.
That's right.
So
I give out my number all the time on my show. So I don't know, they like, hey, you know what? If you want to do something, either you want to curse me out or you want to join something, I'll take both calls.
That's right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Corland.
Yes, sir.
We have issues as a
Mhm.
nation.
Mhm.
We have issues as humanity. And I'm not looking at the wishful thinking, but I believe that we have a choice and we can make a difference. I just do. I wouldn't do this if I didn't. What's next? What what are you thinking?
I'm thinking um, that we have to show up.
Hmm.
We have to show up simply because we're not supposed to leave this earth without our life speaking. Your life stands for something. It should mean when we leave here, the earth should know that we were present. If you want to know what you should do, think about what you want your legacy to say. Do you want your legacy to say? Well, let them do it. It's about not trying to be somebody else, because, you know, so many people die every day trying to be copies of somebody else. I'm not asking anybody to be a copy of who was here or who's here now. I'm asking them to show up in realness for humanity, show up in truth for themselves and the people around them. Make your life stand for something. And it cannot stand for something simply by you doing something for yourself. The person next to you needs something. They need a hand up. They need information. You know, we always think about, oh, well, if I'm helping, I got to give money. And how about giving your time?
Yeah.
How about giving your time to causes like Shawanna's cause? To say, okay, can I make a phone call? Can I write a letter? How are you showing up on the earth? Every human being matters. We're all irreplaceable. And do you know that the phenomenal thing is, I cannot be who I am without you. I need you to be a better me. And it doesn't come with a title in front of it or behind it. I just need another human to say, I see you.
See you.
You matter. And I say this to my colleagues and my clients all the time. If I never met you, you're so important to my life that I would miss you. Because we all collectively make up the beautiful tapestry of human existence. And we all need each other. Stop buying into the narrative that we do not need each other. We were born through relationship. Yes, we were harmed in relationship, but I promise you, we can only be healed through relationship. Think about your brother and your sister. Smile. How about that? That don't cost nothing. Smile on the morning. Actually tell some person hello. Let them think you crazy. It's okay. You showed them what crazy looked like. It's beautiful. Crazy is beautiful. And as I said to you earlier, stop being the rocking chair. Stop getting into these movements and you don't go anywhere.
Mhm.
Right? Be a part of something that supersedes your even your imagination, but affects your generations in a profound way.
My brothers and sisters, we're taking off here on Bridges Live, and we're talking about prison, post-traumatic prison disorder, but we have more to come. And I tell you, I'm going to have my sisters back on again next week because there's so much more to do. There's so much more to say. There's so much more to, and I know sometimes this is an overload for you if you've never felt this before. But share this with your friends. Make a difference. Connect with us. If you want Shawana's thing, connect with me. Put it in the inbox, and I'll get you connected. So, because we have so much more work to do and so many things to do that it takes us all. Shawana, before we take off, what would you like to say?
I want to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you, both of you. Um, I want to say that service, you got to pay your rent here on earth.
Mhm.
You got to pay your rent while you're here. Know what you stand for. Legacy is important. My legacy is going to be healing. I pose you to ask yourself tonight, what is your legacy going to be? And where are you going to stand when it's over? And if you believe in wellness, then you have to support this legislation. Period. Wellness doesn't have an income bracket, a color. It's non-discriminatory. And if you believe in wellness, then you have to believe in post-traumatic prison disorder, Shawana W76337.
Dr. Coral Lamb, please.
I would say for those who have experienced some form of trauma, I want you to know that you are not what has happened to you, but that you are beautiful, you are worthy, you are valued. There are people like me that's beating the drum for people like you every day. And if you need to talk to somebody, don't be afraid. Go ahead, reach out, get the help that you need. We are here. And above all, I really want to thank you, Dr. Paul, for allowing us this space. You have allowed us this space to be transparent, to be real, to be human, to extend the love that we earnestly have for humanity. And I can't thank you enough. You are my brother in spirit. I gotta check my daddy and my mama, ask them if something went on. We are always connected, you know. We just like the same person. But honestly, thank you for what you are doing because you're bringing healing to the land. You're bringing healing to the land. So kudos to you and what you are doing, and may you continue to be blessed. May you
Bless you.
continue to be blessed.
Hey, my sisters, I tell you,
Amen.
thank you, thank you, thank you. And let's pray us out. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for people hearing our words. Thank you for allowing people to know that they're not alone in this struggle at all. I've always said this. You are not alone unless we are together as we. There is no I, and there's always a change coming, but we must take action now. In Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. Thank you.
Amen.
Amen.